Again, my name is Dr. Ron Berman. I'd like to welcome everyone. Kat, if you could please put up the first slide as I talk. I'd like to welcome everyone to our session today. We have spent, and the good news is, this is the entire IRB team. We've been working for quite a while to update the application process to make it easier for you to submit your IRB application while also adhering to the new recently announced standards and federal guidelines. So we'll try to provide a concise overview of everything you need to do, and therefore this should help you to more rapidly submit your application. So having said that, I'd like to then pass this to Dr. Linda Garrett, who will take you through the presentation. Dr. Garrett.
Thank you, Dr. Berman. As Dr. Berman said, my name is Dr. Linda Garrett, and I am the IRB Research Specialist. This webinar is for researchers who will start their application after January 22nd, 2019. In this webinar, we will discuss updates to the IRB process. This is in adherence to recently adopted federal regulations governing the protection of human subjects known as the Common Rule. With me, I have the IRB team. Before we get started, I would like to ask Dr. Bainbridge, the Assistant Dean and IRB Director, to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. As Dr. Garrett mentioned, my name is Dr. Cynthia Bainbridge. I'm the Assistant Dean for the College of Doctoral Studies over Research and Dissertations, and that includes the IRB here at Grand Canyon University. I'd like to thank all of you for taking time out of your very busy schedules to be here this afternoon. This is an important webinar, particularly as you are beginning or anticipating moving into IRB and requiring an IRB review. For the past few months, we have been working very hard to prepare for the recently adopted federal regulations governing the protection of human subjects. And as Dr. Garrett mentioned, these regulations go into effect next week. So this is an important webinar for you to be here and to learn a little bit more about what those new regulations are and how that impacts your application. So one of the things we know is that any changes to our systems here at GCU, our templates and our requirements come with some concerns. And so the purpose of this presentation is really to make sure that you understand what the key changes are that will be relevant to your IRB review process, your application process and review process, and of course to help alleviate those concerns as you transition. So what I really want to point out to all of you, particularly those of you that are beginning the IRB process, is the new federal regulations really benefit you as a researcher with a minimal risk study. And most of our studies here in the College of Doctoral Studies and also in the College of Nursing and even on campus really are classified in that minimal risk category. And what this does is the regulations now allow institutional review boards to streamline the IRB application and then also the associated documents and the review process. So ultimately this will help move you through the review process more quickly and efficiently with a little bit less work that should make it easier and more relevant to your particular study. So with that, what I'll do is turn the presentation over to Dr. Garrett and Dr. Taraga to provide the additional details in this presentation. As I mentioned earlier on, we'll be happy to answer questions in the chat. You can also post those questions in the Q&A box, and we will do our very best to answer those questions. And we do have some time saved at the end of the presentation to really kind of address a lot of the common questions that may come up along the way in the presentation. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Garrett.
Thank you, Dr. Bainbridge. A recording of this presentation will be closed captioned and uploaded to the DC network along with the PowerPoint presentation. Again, you're muted, but you can ask questions in either the chat or in the Q&A, and the IRB team will be answering those questions. Now I will direct the presentation over to Dr. Taraga.
Thank you, Dr. Garrett. Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Ramya Taraga. I'm the IRB chair. The agenda for today's meeting includes a couple of updates on the final rule, Then we will provide some information on the application and supporting documents. We will discuss how we have simplified the IRB application, provide a couple of updates and additions that we have made to the IRB document templates. And finally, we will walk you through the submission process. We will present some videos for you, which will discuss how to start your IRB application, how to complete the initial submission packet, and how to track the status of your submission. We will also present some tips for a successful submission. Final rule is a federal mandate, and it will be implemented on January 22nd, 2019. Some of the relevant changes to our institution are we have revised the definitions of research and added new definitions. And these are in the guidance documents that will be uploaded to the DC Network IRB Research Center page in the Forms and Templates section. In addition to this, we have also revised the informed consent forms to meet the new regulatory requirements. And these basically include specific sections that have been added to the informed consent. We have updated the exempt review categories to meet the new regulatory requirements, updated and simplified expedited review process, and finally, the most relevant change to us and you as a researcher is the elimination of continuing review. So if your study is approved as exempt or expedited, then you no longer are required to submit a continuing review to the IRB. Next slide, please. So the new IRB application has been streamlined, and in an effort to reduce the review cycles, we have created a smart form, and this smart form has inbuilt logic that will prompt researchers to answer study relevant questions in order to upload only study specific documents. And we are hoping this will reduce your submission effort and make the entire process easy for you. The next update we have done is to include an acknowledgement for city training within the application. And in order for this to happen, we have made a lot of effort. And this will really help in avoiding training validation errors and avoid you as researchers to upload city completion reports in the IRB submission. And with those two updates, we are hoping it will save time. Next slide, please. So coming to the supporting documents, we have updated all our document templates to align with the new IRB application and also the federal regulations. And in addition to that, we have updated our informed consent. We have added two new sections to the informed consent. One is a key information section, which will provide a concise summary of your research study. And another section we have added is a future research section, which will state if the data collected during the current study will or will not be used for future research. In addition to this, we have also developed a new template for data use agreement, and this is applicable for researchers who will be using private or proprietary data or data sets for their research. And lastly, all the updated document templates will be available on the DC network in the IRB Research Center page under Forms and Templates on January 22nd, 2019. With that, I would like to direct the presentation over to Dr. Garrett.
Thank you, Dr. Taraga. The new application and submission packet, again, will be published on the DC network on January 22nd, 2019. The following two videos will walk you through the process. The first video is how to start your application in IRIS, and the second video is how to complete the submission packet in IRIS. Each of these videos is 4 minutes long. Next slide, please.
This video will take you step by step through the process of starting your application in IRIS, the GCU IRB system. To log into IRIS, navigate to gcuirb.imedris.net and enter your GCU email and GCU password. If you have trouble logging in, please visit support.gcu.edu. Once you are on the IRIS homepage, hover over Study Assistant. A menu will appear. Select Add a new study. Once you click Add a new study, you'll be taken directly to what IRIS calls the study shell. Here you will complete the first 3 sections of your application. In the first section titled General Information, you will enter the title of your study and a shortened version of the title so you can easily identify it later. Finally, select the appropriate study classification. If you are unsure about which classification to select, please see the IRB resources located on the IRB Research Center. Click Save and Continue to Next Section to proceed through the application. The second section within the study shell is called Set Up Department Access. The default department for GCU has already been selected for you. Simply click Save and Continue to Next Section to proceed. The final section within the study shell is called Grant Key Personnel Access to the Study. Here you can add a principal investigator, which is a student, faculty, or staff member completing the application. If you have a co-investigator, you will add them in section 3.2 under Additional Investigators. If there is someone that is responsible for managing your study, such as a chair or supervisor, you will add them in section 3.2 under Research Support Staff. Research support staff is generally restricted to doctoral researchers. Finally, it is important to add your co-investigator and/or supervisor as a study contact in order for them to receive system notifications. This process can be completed in section 3.3. To add yourself as a principal investigator, select Add User in section 3.1. You'll be directed to the Search User directory. Type in your last name and first name, and then click Find. Confirm that the email address matches the email used to log into IRIS. Click on the check mark under Select User. You'll be redirected back to Section 3 within the study shell. The Add User process is the same when adding additional investigators or research support staff. As an example for doctoral learners, let's add a chair to this study. Select Add User in Section 3.2 under Research Support Staff. Type in the user's last name and first name and click Find. Please note that if you are unable to locate a user in the Search User directory, it is possible that they have not logged into IRIS to activate their account. You may need to contact them outside the system and ask them to log in. Next, click on the check mark under Select User. Once the name has been selected, use the drop-down to select the type of research support staff. Select Chair from the drop-down. Be sure to repeat the process to add your co-investigator and/or supervisor as a study contact in section 3.3, as applicable. Once this section is complete and all users have been added, click Save and Continue to Next Section to proceed through the application questions.
There appears to be a good deal of questions in the chat, so maybe we should stop now and maybe address some of the questions. I see a question, do you need to add a methodologist and content expert? Dr. Bainbridge?
Okay, yeah, we have some good questions about sort of things that happen prior to the IRB process. And so one of the things you all need to do, if you are working on your prospectus, working on your proposal with your committee, you need to go to the DC Network, make sure you download a copy of our dissertation milestone guide. And in that dissertation milestone guide, it's on the DC Network under the dissertation resources page, and it will give you a step-by-step overview of what you need to do at each step along the way in terms of developing your proposal or you're writing your prospectus, developing your proposal, and so on. So that's your first resource that you really need to read carefully and understand, because it clearly outlines the steps and process. A lot of questions are coming in about when should I submit to the IRB. And we submit to IRB after you have a peer review, committee approved proposal, and that you have completed your proposal defense and passed your proposal defense. And what happens at that point is you're issued what's called a D35 form. It's a form that verifies that your proposal's approved and that you have successfully passed your defense. Once you have your D35 form, your approved proposal, then your next step is to submit to IRB, because one of the things we do in IRB is we're looking at specifically the human subjects protection piece, right? So your committee is looking very carefully at your design and other aspects, your methodology, your design, how you're going to, your data collection procedures. But then we take it one step further in IRB and look very carefully at how you're going to recruit those study participants, who those participants are, and all the information that you will give those participants in the informed consent to let them know what they're going to be participating in. So the IRB occurs after you have a D35 form. And when should you start working on your IRB application? Well, you can start at any time. Our system allows you to draft documents, put a draft application in, and that's very helpful to do, particularly as you're, for example, in the peer review process with your proposal. Keep in mind that any changes that come out of peer review or even your defense, you have to make sure and update your IRB documents to align with that. But it's always good to be working ahead and getting your documentation and making sure you have everything in order. So sometime around that peer review stage, and I also think there's a course in your sequence program of study that will prompt you to start developing draft documents for IRB. So that's an important question. Now, back to your committee. The committee structure is set in your first class, that's your dissertation class, and it will be an RES class with an RES or a psych class or DBA class with the numbers 885. So when you get to RES 885, psych 885, DBA 885, that's when your full committee is formed. You'll get a chair assigned, a methodologist assigned, and your content expert is the person that you pick, right? And then that's when your committee will be formalized, and then you can really start moving forward in earnest with working on your prospectus and proposal. Okay, any other questions that are popping up?
Somebody had asked, what do they do if the research site requires our approval first? So I just answered the question. So if the research site or the place where you're going to conduct research needs our approval first, we need evidence from you. You have to submit an evidence in the form of a letter from the site stating they need GCU IRB approval first before they can provide approval.
Those are always kind of a bit complicated because you do have organizations that have their own IRB, other universities, and sometimes they want to see the project first and they'll approve it, and then you can submit to us. There's other options for affiliation agreements between IRBs. So what you need to do in that situation is really ask specifically what they're looking for. And if they're requiring an IRB approval from GCU first, then you need to provide some sort of documentation on that. Also, if you have any questions related to that, we have a way for you to contact us. Dr. Garrett will provide that at the end of the presentation via email. And we also do office hours weekly. So those office hours are a great time to come in and ask those questions. I had a lot of questions that I was answering in Q&A on city training and whether or not the city training is valid with the changes to the federal regulations. And yes, the city training stays the same. Your certifications are valid. They're valid for 5 years, and there's no changes there. So not to worry on that front.
Yeah.
All right.
These are great questions, and we'll take more questions a little bit later on, but I think we need to proceed with the presentation and the second video.
Thank you. The second video is how to complete the submission packet in IRIS. So we're going to start that video now.
Once you've completed the application questions, you'll be prompted to complete the initial submission packet. This video will demonstrate how to complete the submission packet, make final changes to your application, upload required study documents, and submit your application. As soon as you click Save and Continue to Next on the last question within the GCU IRB application, you'll be directed to the initial submission packet. The initial submission packet is comprised of 3 sections. Section 1, Submission Packet Summary. In Section 1, the study title and principal investigator will be pre-populated from your GCU IRB application. If you are a doctoral learner, you will add your chair in Section 1.4. Here you will enter a lay summary for your study by briefly describing the purpose, population, and data collection. Once you've entered your lay summary, click Save and Continue to Next section. You'll be routed to Section 2, GCU IRB Application. This section within the initial submission packet houses the application you already completed. This is where you will go to make any changes to your application answers. To edit the application answers, click the pen and pad icon under Edit/View, and you'll be routed back to the application form. You can return to this section at any time before you submit the packet to make changes to your application answers. To proceed, click Save and Continue to Next section. In Section 3, you will be prompted to upload the required study documents. The system will determine the documents that are required for your study based on the answers you provide in the application form. To access the forms and templates for the required study documents, click on the Help icon. A new tab will open and you will have access to download any form or template. Once you have your required study documents prepared, you can upload them to IRIS. For the purposes of this demo, we have already uploaded most of the required study documents. Please note that every application is different and the required study documents in this video are just an example. To upload a document, click on Add a New Document. A new window will open. Click Choose File and browse for the file on your computer. Click Open. The file is now uploaded. Select the appropriate category for the document and click Save Document. The document will now appear in the section. When applicable, you can upload multiple documents at once. For example, you can see that 2 documents are uploaded in the Data Collection section. Let's upload 2 documents to recruitment materials to demonstrate how this works. Click Add Multiple Documents. Click Choose File to browse for your first document. Click Open. Repeat this process to upload an additional document. And please mute yourself. Thank you. Select the appropriate category, add a version date, and version number. Once you are ready, click Save Documents. Now both documents are attached to the submission packet. Learners should work with their chairs to ensure quality and completeness of required study documents. Once you have uploaded all the required study documents, click Save and Continue to Next section. A new page will display notifying you that the form is complete. Click Sign Off and Submit to proceed. You'll be routed to the Submission Routing Sign-Off page, which will display all the submission components. You do not have to check any of the boxes on this page. Skip to the bottom to review the PI non-disclosure/confidentiality agreement. Be sure to read the agreement carefully before moving on. If you're ready to move on, click Approve and Save Sign-Off. You'll be routed to the Submission Tracking page, where you can view the status of your application. To return to the submission tracking page at a later date, click on My Studies on your homepage. You'll be routed to the My Studies page. Click on the pen and pad icon in the Click to Open column. Select Initial Review Submission Packet. Select In Process under Track Location. Thank you for watching this IRIS instructional video. For more IRB resources, navigate to the URL on the screen.
The IRB team has provided several tips to assist you in successfully submitting your IRB application. Most importantly, which I cannot stress enough, please align your IRB application with your study documents. These include the site authorization, recruitment materials, informed consent forms, and other specific documents. This is important because you want to make sure that what you say in your application matches not only your proposal, but your recruitment materials and informed consent. Additionally, alignment is important so that the IRB reviewer has a clear understanding of what the research entails, can conduct a quick and streamlined review of your application, and reduce the need for multiple revisions. We have found that this is often what slows down the review process. Please don't copy and paste from your proposal. Read the instructions within the templates carefully. The instructions are there for your guidance. When you download a template, you'll see instructions in purple. You will also see text in black. The text in black should not be changed. After you complete each document, remove the instructions. Review the documents for grammatical errors and typos. Documents that have significant errors will be returned. Remember that your documents will be submitted to study participants and other institutions. And what you submit to them is a reflection on you as a researcher as well as on the university. Next slide, please. For your help and guidance, we've listed several resources. The first two resources will provide you with information on the final rule. The Department of Health and Human Services is an excellent resource for information on the final rule. In addition, City Program has a wealth of information on this topic. In the IRB Research Center, located on the DC network, you'll find a step-by-step guide for completing the IRB application process, along with videos, updated document templates, and instructions. If you need assistance with IRIS, please send an email to irissupport@gcu.edu, and that is located on the screen. If you need assistance with IRB process or content, please send your email to irb@gcu.edu. This includes questions related specifically to your review, or if you need assistance with understanding how to complete a document. Next slide, please. Sorry, I just also wanted to add that we have IRB office hours. You can find them on the DC Network calendar on the home page. They are weekly on Wednesdays from 10:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Arizona time. Next slide.
I guess before we summarize, let's see if there are any other questions. I think there have been great questions, by the way. There was a question, can you save your application and draft before submitting? Yes, nothing gets done until it's actually sent over to the chair who actually does the actual submission on your behalf. I think
Dr. Berman, yeah, we have a question from Ronald. It's kind of a complicated question, so why don't I attempt to answer it here with the group. His question is, documents that originate from study participants that have to be signed or require the participant fill in text, uploading these documents is not clear-cut. Does IRB require them to be hard copy submitted or submitted automatically? So what I think you're referring to, Ronald, is that like the informed consents, the signed informed consent documents, perhaps something else that is part of your data collection that the participant might fill out. And if that's the case, then those are things that will occur after you get IRB approval. So we review your informed consent document that includes all of your study information, and that's what you would hand out to your participants to review and sign. You'll keep those in your files. Those will not need to be backloaded into your IRB application. Okay, so and as well as data collection tools, or perhaps if they're filling out a survey. So I don't know if that answers your question, and maybe Dr. Taraga wants to jump in on that. But one of the things I want to say with this group in particular, it's really important to understand that you cannot recruit study participants. You cannot interact with study participants or do anything related to data collection with study participants until after IRB approval. That's what we call an ethical violation. You have to go through all of the different steps that we have outlined in the dissertation milestone guide. And I know you all probably have looked at the dissertation template, and there's this big red box in the ethical considerations section about not collecting data, not interacting. And that includes archival data, folks. So, I mean, you need to wait until your approval's in place, because here's what happens. When you go through the review process, you know, I mean, there's a couple things that happen, but one of the things predominantly was what happens is if there's data collection in advance, and then your committee changes your study or requires changes, or peer review requires changes, or IRB requires changes, that data is no good anyway, right? So, but it also is a standard research protocol. Every university, every institution follows that, and we follow that as well, and we're very, very, I guess, stern and rigid about that process. So don't go collect any data, don't be sending out informed consents, don't recruit, don't do all of those things until after you get through the proposal review processes, your proposal defense, and you have an IRB approval in hand. Okay, so I hope that answers your question.
We have another important question on, can we do our pilot study before IRB? Answer is no. So pilot studies require IRB approval because they involve larger samples, larger sample sizes. So they do require IRB approval before you can start conducting your pilot study.
And then as a follow-up, I guess, field testing, okay. You want to address that, Dr. Taraga?
Yeah, field testing is okay. You don't need IRB approval for that because it's basically with smaller samples. So that is fine. But pilot studies do require IRB approval.
Okay, and just to add on to that, a field testing is taking a few individuals and perhaps, you know, testing your interview guide with them, right? Seeing if your interview questions make sense, going through that, having an expert panel to help make sure that that interview guide is correct for those of you that are doing a qualitative study. Perhaps those who are doing a quantitative study is saying, hey, I have this survey instrument or whatever instrument, a leadership instrument that you want to make sure you understand the questions and how to score them and what everything means. And so you would take a few individuals and just go through that process. What's important in field testing is anybody that does serves as an expert on your panel, or perhaps is part of a field test for an instrument, they cannot serve as a participant in your study, your formal study, once it's approved. So very important. There's a big difference between field testing and a pilot study. A pilot study is basically a smaller version of the larger study you intend to conduct. Okay, so maybe your larger study would be 100 participants, but a pilot study, you would use 10. That would require an IRB approval to do the pilot study, and that's completely fine. Just be aware that that's part of the process.
We have another question. How do I get support document for site authorization from GCU? So I think what you mean, George, is the template for site authorization. So we do have a template that you can use to apply for site authorization from the research site. It is available on the DC Network IRB page under Forms and Templates.
I'll also jump in if it may be specific to site approval at Grand Canyon University. There is a link on the IRB Resource Center page that is in step 4 on your steps prepared and provide some guidelines. If you are planning to would like to do a study at GCU, I would really want to make sure you are all aware that a very limited number of applications are approved. for site approval, and it's primarily because of oversampling and a number of other reasons. So, but kind of a word of caution there. And also, if you are asking to do or would like to do research at GCU with students or staff or faculty, you will need to identify the college that you would like to do that in, talk with the college dean, get support for that study. There is a process by which you sort of have to independently go through in order to, demonstrate that the leadership of the college or the division would want that research done at GCU. So I hope that answers that letter or that question.
Yeah, we have another question.
Okay.
When can we apply for the site's IRB approval?
I'm not for site IRB approval. Well, I'm not sure what that question is. If you have maybe I'll contextualize it with a school district, for example. If a school district many school districts have specific guidelines regarding research at their school or within the district. And so with that, you need to go onto their website, determine if they have a research committee, or in some very large districts, they have their own IRB. And they'll actually want to approve your study before you would ever submit to us. So you need to look at those guidelines and regulations from that school district and comply with that, because many times they only meet like once every 3 months or once every 6 months. So you really need to understand timelines in order to gain those site approvals. If you're working on your prospectus and you have a good framework for your study, then that's a good time to start approaching organizations for site approval, so that you can really understand what your options are for where you could potentially conduct your research study. And I will tell you all, for site approval, it's very important to have Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, and Plan D, because a lot of research or a lot of institutions now and school districts are really limiting the research that's being conducted because they get so many requests. And that's even the case at Grand Canyon University. We get so many requests, we just can't accommodate all of that research with our faculty, staff, and students. So always make sure you get a Plan A, Plan B, Plan C for your site off, and then that does need to be in place when you submit to IRB. There's a specific requirement in the application submission that you would have to attach your site authorization letter.
We have a question about City. I'm attempting to access City and GCU is not listed in the institution list. Is anyone else having this problem? So you should see, you should enter the institution name as Grand Canyon University instead of GCU, and it should show up.
Well, it says, well, we will look into that question, Lakita. We'll have to see if there's a glitch, but it should be Grand Canyon University. We haven't had any problems with that.
Yes, contact us directly through the email address, and we will respond to your question and assist you in getting it.
And then Henry just asked about you can get site authorization prior to your IRB submission. You actually need to do that, right? You need to have a site authorization letter from the organization or the school district or a university, other university, or IRB approval, whatever their requirements are, that needs to be submitted along with your application materials. So you can go ahead and get that site authorization in advance of your IRB. That's important to do.
Yes, and I would.
There was a question regarding which email should you be using. You should be using your GCU email because that'll automatically link in with a variety of different things. So please use your GCU email when interacting with your IRB system.
And with City Training, when you.
Yes. It's important that both IDs match. Okay.
All right.
Well, these are great questions. I want to thank everyone for attending today. This was a great opportunity for us to share with you the work which has been done over the last, not just weeks, but the last year, to update our systems, to try to make it as easy as possible for you to learn the process of research, and that includes, of course, submissions to an institutional review board. We have been working hard, and we are ready to comply with the new federal regulations. And the good news is that as a result of that, we're able to simplify the application process and combine questions and make it a lot easier for you. We have a variety of different resources which will help you, but also we have weekly office hours. So if you have specific questions about how you might submit your application or about the IRB, we can help you. So the office hours we have open office hours, no appointment is needed. We do it each and every week. The new templates will be online next week on the 22nd. So I think this will really help you, and this demonstrates our commitment as a university, as an institution, to support you as future researchers in your individual disciplines. So on behalf of the entire team here, I want to thank you for attending. I look forward to your progress in your research, and I look forward to reading your dissertation when it comes forward. So have a great day, and thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thanks,
afternoon. Bye-bye.
Bye.